The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast, featuring Jeff Upson and Eric Nichter. PA Power Wrestling. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
What's going on, wrestling fans? You are now tuned in to the PA Power Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Upson, and this week we're joined by our old friend, Jeremy Elliott. He took a break from sprint car racing to talk a little wrestling here, Jeremy, and I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the show, and I always look forward to doing some wrestling.
You were at the sectional tournament in District 3, Section 3 at Mechanicsburg last week, and you've been to a good amount of wrestling this year in the District 3 area. What are your thoughts about the season this year?
Well, I mean, what stands out from last week is Luke Nichter obviously beating Clayton Ulrey. He went 0-2 against him before finally beating him. Wrestled a great match. I'm sure we'll talk about that once we break down Class AAA, and also just how he beat him and who's the favorite this week. But Luke Nichter was very impressive. Ben Mon from Cumberland Valley was really good, beating Aiden Lewis, and Cody Evans getting a win over Schindeldecker from Chambersburg. I thought those were the three big matches in AAA from Mechanicsburg.
Well, we're going to go through the South Central regional brackets. Of course, everyone knows District 3 is its own self-contained region. The top four place winners at the District 3 or South Central Regional Tournament will advance on to the state tournament. It's the first of the AAAs that are going to be the first four into the state tournament. So big weekend. Jeremy and I will be there at Spring Grove High School to bring you coverage of the AAA tournament. Let's go down through the weights here, and I'm looking at 106, and Matt Repos from Central Dauphin is at the top at 36-4. He's a freshman. In fact, I got to see him up close and personal at the Surge, our second annual tournament this year at Pitt Johnstown. He was there, wrestled really well. In fact, he beat a state medalist, Braxton Apello from Easton. Very impressed with him. I was concerned about the weight cut. I was concerned that because we had seen him up as high as 120, I was kind of surprised to see him go down to 106, but it seems like it's the weight cut's not a problem at all. He's obviously doing it the right way because he looked really good in his Section 2 tournament.
I agree. I don't know how he doesn't win this weight, to be honest with you. Just looking at what I've seen from him this year, and also just looking over the bracket. I mean, there's ranked guys at 106 joining him there, meaning ranked guys in the state. But I think he's a clear-cut favorite unless there's something with his weight or something we don't know about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's the favorite here. Once he dropped down, he's been so dominant, even at 113. So him down at 106, he's looking really good. He could have a really good quarterfinal match if he and Fetro both win. Jacob Fetro from Gettysburg, a guy who actually last year was a regional fifth place finisher. So he was in the top five at the regional tournament last year. He's been kind of up and down this year. He's been really. He's wrestled up as high as I think like 126. He hasn't been down at 106 a whole lot. In fact, in the Section 4 finals, he lost to Caden Dobbins from Dallastown, who's been a really solid wrestler for them. I got to see him at the state team tournament, so that sets up a nice quarterfinal match with Repos and Fetro. The bottom half, I'm looking at Dobbins. Maybe Dominic Flatt from Solanco, who lost to Hillard from Manheim Township. I also like that Hillard and Dobbins match in the quarterfinals, should we see that. And you can't sleep on Gregoris from Big Spring. That's another, his brother Hunter Gregoris was there, and now it's Eli, and he won the Section 3 tournament.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Dobbins-Hilliard match, which could be your quarterfinal. I like the fact Hilliard comes in. He was non-ranked last week, so you're going to have to put him in this week. And beating Flats, I think, was a good win. Now his reward is facing Dobbins, who's ranked 18th in the state. So that should be a good quarter. I think we could see a Hilliard Flat semifinal down in the bottom half. And you mentioned Grigoris. Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good in his finals match. I still like Flatto to make it through his quarterfinal with Grigoris and to get to the semifinals and face either Dobbins or Hilliard. But, I mean, again, as we said earlier, I think it's all Repos all the time. I don't think there's any way he loses this bracket.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, with Repos being the clear favorite. And Hilliard, actually, he reversed a decision he lost to Dominic Flat, so he clearly is wrestling well at the right time. And it'll be interesting to see how everything pans out in that bottom half, because I do think Repos has a pretty clear shot to the finals, and as you mentioned, he should be the clear favorite. So we'll see if the Central Dolphin Ram can bring it home. Let's go up to 113 pounds, where, as you mentioned earlier, Ben Mon from Cumberland Valley really turned it on in the sectional finals. This was a great match because this was number 2 versus number 3 in the state. He took on Aiden Lewis from Cedar Cliff, who's also a returning state medalist. They were at different weights last year, but Aiden Lewis has been a guy who really turned some heads, especially at the Powerade tournament, where he beat Dylan Chappell from Seneca Valley, a state runner-up last year. Aiden Lewis is no easy out, and Ben Mon, I mean, would you say he controlled that match, Jeremy?
I'll tell you what, there were a lot of big scrambles. I mean, the score isn't indicative of how good the match was. I mean, you see the score, the final score, and if I'm not mistaken, it was 2-1 or 3-1, or just drawing a blank on that. But there was a lot of scrambles on bottom, whether it was Mon trying to keep Lewis down, or it was two guys trying to gain control. I thought it was entertaining. It was definitely not a snooze fest, despite what the score says, and I think they were neck and neck. I didn't think Bond controlled it. I think it could have went either way, and I think Mon pretty much hinted at that when we talked to him afterward, that it was a good match to kind of keep this. You never want to peak at sectionals. You want to peak, obviously, down the road at states. It was a great match, I think, for both of them. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they meet again in the finals at districts.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could happen. You look at the top half of the bracket, Ben Mon is at the top. I don't see him having any trouble making it to the semifinals. I like the first round match between Noah Clausen and Kelvin Rodriguez from Wilson. Clausen is a 4th place finisher out of Section 3, but Section 3 is loaded. You got, obviously, Mon and Lewis, but then, of course, you have Wyatt Fox and Noah Clausen, 2 guys that were state qualifiers last year. So you have 2 state medalists and 2 state qualifiers here in the top 4 from Section 3. So clearly a lot of talent there. I'm interested to see who comes out on the bottom half, though, because you look at Lewis, that really is set up kind of a tough match for him, because should he win his first match, he's likely going to get Mason Leipart from Dover, who's 30-0. He's a state qualifier last year. He's really good. So, I mean, obviously you look at that and you say, well, that's, he's 30-0, but who does Dover wrestle? Aiden Lewis is a guy who got on the podium last year at the state tournament, while Leipart didn't. Lewis was 4th in the state last year. Leipart was a qualifier. So I kind of give the edge to Lewis, the junior, but that's going to be a good match, especially early on.
I think it could be one of the best, quarterfinals of the whole tournament. I like what Leipart is doing right now. He's 5th in the state. Aiden Lewis is 3rd. You don't get many of those matchups in the quarterfinals of a district tournament. We're going to see that. And again, you mentioned, Wyatt Fox and Clausen. Clausen from Carlisle. Carlisle is taking 12 guys to the district tournament. I think that's a major accomplishment for Coach Wilson and his group. They're gonna be really good, I think, in next year, because they're moving down a division. They're not going to be in the Commonwealth. They go to the Keystone. Basically, they're flip-flopping with Cedar Cliff, and I think this is just good experience for this group, taking that many people to districts.
Yeah, you said it. Carlisle has been very impressive this year, and I saw a nice feature on Coach Wilson that was done recently. So I agree. I think that we are going to see probably the best match of quarterfinals here at 113 between Lewis and Leiphart. Other guys to keep an eye on, Wyatt Fox there from Redland, who beat Clausen in the third place match at Section 3. Alazar Alicia from Manheim Township, he is a sophomore, 29-3, has had a good year thus far. Now, Manheim Township obviously doesn't wrestle the toughest competition in the state, but they still have some pretty good tournaments they go to. So I'm interested to see if maybe he and Fox make it to the quarterfinals and see who makes it to the semifinals. But I'm looking for a lot of fireworks here at 113 because, Jeremy, there's a lot of depth here at District 3 at 113 pounds.
I agree. I think this is one of the best weight classes, which, going into a tournament, we always look at what the best weight class is. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty close with 113. I don't always like weights below. I think 106, you have a bunch of freshmen, and sometimes even at 113, you kind of have the same thing. But 113 stacked, there's experience there. I think it's the total package as far as heavy hitters, rankings, and some experience.
Well, if you think 113's tough, Jeremy, you haven't looked at 120 yet because 120,
I have.
120 is very stacked, and we'll start at the top with Will Betancourt from Manheim Central. Number one, I can't believe he's down at 120. Number two, he is a two-time state medalist and won the regional tournament last year. He was 7th as a sophomore and 5th as a junior. He's heading to Lock Haven University. He's 30-2 on the year. I think this is definitely Will's time to show how dominant he is. But here we go again, because you had said the best quarterfinals is going to be at 13. I'm going to say the best quarterfinal is going to be between Will Betancourt and Carl Schindeldecker, two guys that both were state medalists last year. In fact, Schindeldecker was a third-place finisher last year. Just an incredible postseason, actually an incredible state tournament for Schindeldecker. Came in with double-digit losses on the year, and he ended the year 24-11, and he came away with a third-place finish in the state. So clearly a good first-round matchup between two state medalists, right? So that's a huge match there. Schindeldecker, as you mentioned, Cody Evans from Susquehanna Township beat him in the championship bout. That was an interesting match because Cody Evans really didn't have. I mean, he had under 25 matches going into that tournament, which is that's kind of rare, especially this time of the year. 120 is stacked.
I think it's the best way to the tournament. We talk, as I said, about 113. I think 113 is good, but I don't think it's as good as 120. Here's something to consider. There are 6 guys in this bracket ranked in the top 17 according to PA Power Wrestling. You can't beat that. And you mentioned Betancourt and Schindeldecker being a quarterfinal. Look, I think it's a great quarterfinal. Schindeldecker needs to do more than he did last week. I thought Cody Evans, and I hate saying he's the sleeper of this bracket because he is 11th in the state. He's already beaten Schindeldecker. The one thing I'll say is that Evans did something last week that impressed me. He's normally go, just a full tilt the whole way. He wrestled a very calculated, patient match. And if he continues to do that, if he continues to, to be able to be diversified and wrestle 2 different styles to win a match, he's going to be really good and he's going to be really tough. And he's definitely in the preferred half of this bracket.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, he hit the jackpot when he won that section because you look at the bottom half, and clearly I think the top half is a lot more difficult because you have also Rafael Portilla from Carlisle, a 3-time state qualifier who has been to Hershey 3 times, hasn't come away with a medal. Very consistent wrestler from Carlisle. He's there as well. He's going to have Dominic Gerardo from Wilson in the first round. Also there is Andrew Christie from New Oxford. Now, this is a kid, I talked about Repost being at the Surge. Andrew Christie made it to the Surge finals, and that was a great performance for him. I had a lot of people asking me who Andrew Christie was. He is 31-4 in the season. He won the section tournament, not the deepest section tournament as Section 4, but again, that just adds to that depth on the top half of 120. On the bottom half, you have Chase Steinman from Daniel Boone. He's a former Boyertown wrestler. Talk about that first-round matchup with Rustin Desilak from Cumberland Valley. He's a guy who's been ranked in the state basically all season. But Cody Evans, I think he has a clear shot to the semifinals. And like you said, if he wrestles his matches, I think he's going to make it to the finals.
Again, I look for guys to kind of shake up their game this time of year, and he's doing it. And he had to wrestle that kind of match last week to beat Schindeldecker, where he was methodical. He came forward, but he didn't come forward too much where he could get caught. So it was kind of controlled chaos, which is a word I like to use. And he was good, and it was a 3-1 match. It was. Yeah. Usually Cody Evans, you expect to see 12-10.
Right.
And
right.
that didn't happen. So it was good. And we talked to him as well. You can see the interview on Rockfin. He talked about how hard it is for him to kind of back off and to kind of play or have a more methodical match. But he did that. He gets the W. And it's just good to see that he can kind of switch up his game plan when he needs to.
Yeah, it seems like he does this every year. Last year the same way. He didn't really have the best regular season. And I would say this year he didn't have the best regular season, but he obviously is peaking at the right time, as you mentioned. Before we move away, I'd like to say there's a few guys you should keep an eye on. Griffin Gonzalez from Lebanon, he's a freshman, 34-2 on the year. He's going to have Schindeldecker in that first round, so Schindeldecker can't overlook Gonzalez. I think he's a guy who's going to battle. And Zach Emery from York Suburban, he is 30-4 in the year. Again, not the best of tournaments last week at Section 4, but a guy I think can surprise some people. So 120's got a lot of depth. I'm looking forward to that one, Jeremy.
I think one of the stories for Schindeldecker is how does he bounce back from that loss? I mean, we talk about that every year, I think. How do they deal with the loss? How do they respond? And I think he's better respond quick in that first match. And something else about Cody Evans, last year he dealt with a shoulder injury. He had a torn labrum, actually.
Wow.
So, for him to come back, he is healthy. He just has to take measures, ice it, kind of do the right things off the mat, and he'll be fine. So this weight is a must-see, and I can't wait to do some reporting on it.
So we had a lot of fireworks at 13-20. It dies down significantly at 126, and that's no offense to anybody who's wrestling at 126 pounds, but there's not nearly the depth here as the two previous weights. I think this is a tale of two wrestlers here because you have Josh Miller from Central Dauphin, a junior, and you have Cole Wilson from Northeastern, a senior. Cole Wilson has been very consistent throughout his career. He was a state qualifier his freshman year, finished fourth his sophomore year, and then qualified last year as well. One of his losses this year is to none other than Ryan Crookham. Jeremy, and you got to see that in Escape the Rock, or I'm sorry, not Escape the Rock, Trojan Wars. And Cole Wilson is very good. He's going to Campbell University. Josh Miller, these two are ranked virtually beside each other in the state, 8 and 9. I think we're going to see Miller and Wilson go at it here. And really, it's just a fight for that third and fourth spots because really it's so far up in the air. I have no idea. I mean, Eric Harnish from Lampeter Strasburg is good. Mason Casey's good. I really don't know who's gonna finish third and fourth here. Evan Chapman from Northern York won Section 3 with an 8-4 record coming in to the regional tournament. So what's he gonna be able to do here? I really don't know.
Yeah, I think I like Chapman. I like his draw. Cole Wilson, it seems like he's been there for 8 years.
Yeah.
We remember him facing Betancourt, if I'm not mistaken,
twice
in the past, and he came up short there. But if he's going to get it done, this is the year. This is the year. Obviously, with with being a senior and his last crack. Betancourt isn't in this bracket. I think Wilson gets this bracket. I think he wins. I like Josh Miller a lot, and he's faced reposts in the room. You know, we talk about all the time with your partners are important in the room to make you perform when in these high-profile tournaments. As far as third and fourth, I think you can. It's a crapshoot. Don't be surprised if there's an upset or a bunch of upsets. I'm with you. I like Chapman from Northern York. They're usually they're coached pretty well. And by the way, Northern usually shows up in these tournaments.
They do.
And,
they have.
And I know they have different coaching staff. I get it. But look, the history's still there. I go with history. I like Evan Chapman to finish third.
Wow. That's I mean, he has less than 15 matches on the year, so we don't really know what we're going to get. Pat Borgia from Exeter intrigues me. I don't know really a whole lot about him, but he's 23-7 on the year, and he's 1-1. He was Section 1 champion. So again, a lot of question marks here after the first two big dogs. So interesting to see. We'll keep an eye on 126 and see who can finish in the top four. If we move up to 132, again, not the most depth like we saw at 13 and 20, but still some very solid wrestlers here, including Bryce Brennan from Redland, who's a returning state medalist. Last year, he had a great Hershey tournament. He was a state qualifier as a sophomore and was 8th in the state last year as a junior. So he's looking to make his third trip to the Giant Center. I think he's the favorite here. But you have some other guys like Tim Uhler from New Oxford, who is no stranger to success. He's had a pretty good career at New Oxford. He was a state qualifier sophomore year, was 5th in the region last year, so he missed a spot. But I'm interested because I could see a quarterfinal with him and Belga from Cumberland Valley in the quarterfinals. I think that could be a good match.
It could be, but again, we talked earlier about guys bouncing back from a loss. The one guy in this bracket that we probably didn't even know if he'd be in this bracket was Chambersburg's Anthony Colangelo, and he beat Gabe Belga last week at Sectionals. How does Belga bounce back from that upset and look at the draw it gave him? Now he's going to face Euler in the quarters, so probably would have had a better draw if he gets through, but now he's got to go through a ranked opponent to make the semifinals probably in Euler, and we'll see what happens.
Another matchup that I'm looking forward to, Mason Myers from Central York. He's a senior. I've liked the way he's wrestled thus far this year. He was regional 6th place last year. He did lose to Euler in the section finals, but he's got a pretty favorable draw because Tyler Faust, I was personally surprised that he won section 2. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Ramsey beats him in that first opening round. That's going to be a good match. Ramsey is a guy who I think is maybe a little bit more under the radar. So really that quadrant right there, I'm interested to see if Mason Myers can come out and make the semifinals because he's had a good season up until last week. So on the bottom half, you got to keep an eye on Colangelo from Chambersburg. Just really a remarkable performance he had last week, beating both Dylan Ramsey and Gabe Belga. So I'm going to be excited to see if anyone can push Brennan because as a returning state medalist, you're obviously going to have a target on your back. So I'm excited to see the competition here at 132.
I mean, Bryce Brennan controlled the bracket at Mechanicsburg, so I don't think he'll have a problem this weekend. But, hey, it's districts. Anything could happen. The other thing is with Faust, look, it's a Central Dauphin wrestler. He's in the room with Josh Miller, Repos, all these guys that can push him. Buckman as well. So, again, I like the Ramsey-Faust matchup because then we get to see, a Central Dauphin kid who maybe, overachieved last week. And now it's going to face a guy in Ramsey who has got to bounce back from losing to Colangelo. So
to a freshman and a sophomore.
Correct. So it's going to be interesting. This bracket really got Colangelo busted this bracket last week, short of beating Brennan. Brennan controlled that match in the finals, but Colangelo's really kind of put this bracket out of whack maybe a little bit and made for some tough early round matches.
For sure. Let's go up to 138 pounds, Jeremy, where we have TT Elhaj from Lower Dolphin as your top seed here. He's 25-3 on the year. He is a returning state medalist. In fact, he's made it to Hershey all 3 years, so he's looking for his fourth trip to Hershey. Just an incredible. I love watching him wrestle. I feel like he's a pretty exciting, pretty entertaining wrestler. I think he has a nice little path here to the finals. I think he's definitely going to be in a good position to make the finals. I think I look at guys on that half. Josh Groff is the other sectional champ down there from Garden Spot. Liam Strauss from Northern York, a guy who you had mentioned Northern York, and he, having a new coach with Dan Nauman, I think we're going to be able to see how improved they've been. Liam Strauss is a guy who I believe could make a run here. Not saying he's going to make a run to the finals, but I think he can push the action a little bit. But I don't know. We'll see. On the bottom half, it's a little bit more, I'd say, less clear because you have Bryce Buckman from Central Dolphin who has no doubt had a really good year, but you also have a freshman who I'm a big fan of, and that's Dominic Frontino from Shippensburg. I was very impressed with him. In fact, that was a tight match with TT Elhaj in the finals, was it not, Jeremy?
He gave him problems. It was not a typical TT match. I expected Elhaj to come out and kind of blast him a little bit, a freshman, and I thought it set up nice. And boy, he gave TT everything he could handle. So I'm with you on Frontino. I want to see how he performs under the bright lights. I mean, it's not the bright lights of Hershey now. It's Spring Grove. But still, it's a big event. It's the district tournament. And look at who he could face in the quarters.
Yeah.
Mason Lewis of Dover. We're talking about another Dover kid who has a pretty good record. And, it should shape up to be a good quarterfinal. But I like TT's path, as you do, because Bryce Buckman's also in the bottom half. Boy, winning last week was huge for TT. He's not going to face a state-ranked wrestler probably until the finals, depending who makes it, barring upsets. So that's always a friendly path to states. Yeah,
no, it absolutely is. But you look at that bottom half, and it's, like I said, a little less clear because I could see Frontino blowing up the bracket, beating Mason Lewis, and maybe Buckman, Frontino, semi. So very good competition here on the bottom half. I'm looking forward to seeing how 138 shakes out. If you go up to 145, a lot of question marks here for me because you look at the top seed, and that's Brooks Gable from Dallastown. He was a state qualifier last year, and I was surprised to see him down at 45. He had he dropped down at the team states. In fact, he wrestled Panero Johnson, who is a two-time state medalist, and he's going to Iowa State. Gable took him to overtime, and I was impressed with the way he wrestled at team states, and he won the section. Again, maybe not the deepest section of Section 4, but he had a good tournament there. I'm excited to see if he can come out, but again, I'm looking at possible quarterfinals. I like the matchup he has with JT Hogan from Daniel Boone. I think that's a really good match. JT Hogan had a setback in the Section 1 finals when he lost to Gunnar Gear from Garden Spot, but JT Hogan he has over 30 wins in the season. Last year, he was very close to making the state tournament. I think he's going to push Gable in that quarterfinals.
Yeah, it's interesting how this bracket has shaken out with JT Hogan finishing second in the first sectional, and now look at what he gets. He gets Brooks Gable, who's the highest ranked guy in the current state rankings at number 7. So I'm liking that quarterfinal as well. It's definitely going to be, when we put out our quarterfinals to watch, it's going to probably be near the top.
Another guy who's interesting is Sean Smith from Carlisle. Now, this guy's a junior, and Jeremy, I know you and I have talked in the past about him, but Sean Smith is the first time him competing in the United States. His family they were a military family, and they were stationed over in Germany, and he competed in wrestling over there, and he actually won 2 European championships while wrestling on this high school. It's essentially an American high school team on the air base. I'm not too familiar with the inner workings of the Department of Defense and how that works, but he was a two-time essentially European champion there. So and he's had a great season. He beat Trenton Harder earlier this year from Bermudian Springs. He won the section tournament and not a easy section with Section 3. Sean Donnelly he beat in the finals. I'm excited to see Sean and see how he competes in his first regional tournament. Gunnar Gear, as I mentioned, had a nice win over JT Hogan. He's on the bottom half. Connor Zemer's there as well. Connor Zemer, I feel like the Zemers have been around for forever. There's a lot of them. I'm interested to see how this bottom half shakes out, because I would not be surprised if we had a couple different options here with Gear, Zemer, Smith, even Jared Townsend from Gettysburg. He can battle. So it should be an interesting weight class, especially in that bottom half.
I just don't know what to expect from Sean Smith. We just don't have much of a book on him. And, obviously in the Carlisle room, they know more than we do. They're high on him. They're real high on him. So, how does he perform? Again, I don't think he's going to be rattled. If you're doing that well overseas, I don't think you're going to get rattled by the competition or the moment. So I'm going to take him to come through that bottom half, and I think he's going to wrestle Gable for the title. And look, going to states, in Pennsylvania, first time over here. I like it. I think he's definitely a guy that's going to turn some heads this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, he turned heads the first part of the season. Like I said, beating a state medalist, and you're coming back. I'm like, wait, who's this guy? Sean Smith? I had to do some pretty deep dive to figure out who he was and what he was about. So pretty cool story there. Jeremy, it'd be nice if you did like an in-depth story on him of some sort.
Maybe this weekend. Maybe
if he makes the finals, you can get a chance to sit down with him and talk a little bit about his path to where he's at now. So 145, definitely a lot of excitement there. A ton of excitement at 152 as well. And you're going to hear one of the first Nichter brothers, and that's Tate Nichter, the junior, who's a returning state medalist. He was sixth last year as a sophomore, was a qualifier as a freshman. He comes in as the top seed here, was a Section 3 champion. He's 36-3 on the year. But look at another quarterfinal here. Ty Weathersby from Central Dauphin. One of those three losses that Tate Nichter has is to Ty Weathersby, and that was at the Beast of the East tournament. Ty Weathersby comes in with a 40-5 record. Just an outstanding career he's had at Central Dauphin. I've been very impressed with him throughout every year. He was a state qualifier last year. We saw him at the Surge this year. He was a finalist there. He lost to Eric Gibson from Forest Hills in the finals. I'm high on Weathersby. Can he beat Nichter? Because he lost to him the last time they wrestled. They split matches. Is he going to be able to get the win this time? If he does, that sets him up nicely. But if he doesn't, he's going to have to really fight hard back, because that top half of the bracket, you look and there's two state medalists. Ethan Bainey is there as well from Southwestern, who 2 years ago was a state medalist. He finished 8th in the state as a sophomore, was a state qualifier last year as a junior. This year, he was a sectional runner-up. He lost to Luke Nichter from Gettysburg. I don't know what to expect here, but a lot of good wrestling. And then let's not forget about Nick Nettleton from Exeter, another guy we got to see at the Surge. He has been wrestling lights out this year. I'm excited for 152.
Who seeds this thing? I mean, look, this goes back to something, and I'll be the first to say it. You know me, I don't care. I don't understand how you can have three guys top 16 in the state, in the top half here, and you have one ranked guy. I mean, the guy who's sitting really good in the bottom half is Colt Barley from Penn Manor.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to be loving this. So I don't understand how you can have a Nichter-Weathersby match in the quarters, and then, oh, by the way, we're going to throw in Ethan Bainey then. I just find that to be kind of, I don't know. I don't like that part about it. But from a fan's perspective, you're going to see some good early round matches. And that quarterfinal is brutal for Nichter and Weathersby.
I mean, there's landmines everywhere. You look, I mean, Ethan Baney, Nick Nettleton, that's a quarter. Weathersby, Nichter, that's a quarter. I think Barley was probably the biggest winner of all of them because he's got a pretty easy path to the semifinals. And then Luke Sanito from Gettysburg also has a pretty nice path to the semifinals. I'm not going to criticize District 3, but yeah, there's a few head scratchers here where you're thinking, man, how does this end up here? But Colt Barley had a nice win over Weathersby. I mentioned how Weathersby has a win over Nichter. Barley upset. I wouldn't really call it an upset, but he definitely turned some heads beating Weathersby. Barley was regional 6th place last year, so he didn't make it to states, whereas Weathersby did. So he definitely reaped the benefits of winning that section because now he's sitting pretty. So, yeah, I don't know what to expect. I'm excited for that Nichter-Weathersby match and to see who can come out on the bottom.
I mean, look, Weathersby needed to win his match. He didn't do his job by winning that match, which would have put him down in the bottom half. But even if that happens, they slot this thing. You would have Barley and Baney's still at the top. It's still lopsided. Maybe they should call you to kind of seed this thing. After
Rod Frisco has my number.
Well, I'll have to talk to Rod this week. I like giving Rod crap. It's always fun for me.
I feel like that you love doing that. So.
Well, and since you're kind of Wilson out on saying what you want to say, I'll say it. This bracket doesn't really make sense to me. But hey, you know what? Again, it's going to give us plenty to talk about, which I like. So let's have at it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to make for a great quarterfinals round. I can tell you that. I mean, our quarterfinals to watch matches are going to be pretty long, Jeremy. So we might want to get started on that now. Just a preemptive article on that because we're going to have a lot of good matches coming up. Let's go up to 160 where you had mentioned it. I love it. Clayton Ulrey and Luke Nichter. I'd say they're definitely on another collision course. There's no doubt about it. That was a heck of a match. That was a 1 versus 2. You have a 1 versus 2 in the sectional finals. Could have a 1 and 2 again in the regional finals, just flip-flopped in terms of who's where. And we could see it again at Hershey in a couple weeks now. So Luke Nichter turned it on, as you mentioned, after going 0 and 2 against Ulrey. I love Clayton Ulrey. I love his pace. I love how he wrestles. In fact, that's a match you can see on Rockfin. If you go to PA Power Wrestling channel on the Rockfin network, you'll be able to see the Ulrey and Nichter match. It was a great match. Again, let's look at the bottom half here because you have Colton Zimmerman as well, who is a returning state medalist. He's had a good year. He was 5th last year at the state tournament. I think that this is, kind of redemption for him a little bit because he finished 3rd in that deep section. He's going to have to battle essentially to get that 3rd and 4th spot if he were not to beat either Clayton Ulrey or Luke Nichter. Ian Edwards is a guy I'd keep an eye on. Colby Ramju from Susquehannock is another guy who I feel like has been around for quite a while. He was a state qualifier last year, had some nice wins at the state tournament, kind of surprised a few people. So, again, landmines everywhere, but this one's all about Nichter and Ulrey.
I agree. My question comes to you is, who are you ranking number 1 in the state going into this tournament? Your rankings come out in the next couple days. Are you moving Nichter ahead of him, even though Ulrey has a 2-1 lead?
Nichter having the most recent win over Ulrey, yeah, that's 100%. He's going to move up to the number 1 spot. Ulrey's going to move down to 2. Now, listen, they both, and this is not, these are 2 very, very highly recruited and touted wrestlers. Clayton Ulrey was a world team member. They both have finished 2nd in the state. And Nichter's a 3-time state medalist. He was 6th, 2nd, and 4th. Ulrey was a qualifier, 5th, and 2nd. So, these 2 are very, very close. Just the fact that Ulrey has beaten him twice this season shows how tight they are. So, I really do think we're going to see it again. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go either way, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, I mean, what Clayton Ulrey's going to have to do is adjust now. Nichter made the adjustment this week. He took away the outside a little bit. He took a step forward, got things close, didn't always attack, but when Ulrey couldn't get that outside takedown he likes to get, which he abused Nichter with that outside move down at Trojan Wars. Took him down 4 times, kind of the same way each time. So now he's not going to be able to do – I mean, Nichter found, that good coaching by Coach Mentzer at Chambersburg. They kept it close, got inside, kept the match inside. Nichter took a step forward and was able to score off a counter and take the eventual win. It was 3-1. Nichter got up 3-0 after a scoreless first period, and really that kind of Ulrey couldn't get going. So now Ulrey's going to have to find out or figure out an adjustment to Nichter's adjustment, and I can't wait. There's a lot of times when I don't like seeing the same match, 6 times in a year. This isn't one of those because I think, like you said about Ulrey's pace is go, go, go. And I think he will make the adjustment. I think that, and then Nichter will probably make it another adjustment. Whereas in the past, we've seen matches where there was no place the other wrestler could go and just there's nothing he could do to stop what was going on. I think these two know each other well. They're going to be able to make adjustments, and we're going to see this 2 more times this year.
Yeah, there's a good chance that does happen. So I hope it does again this week. But again, don't forget about Colton Zimmerman and Colby Ramju. Those guys I think are going to compete. I wouldn't be surprised to see those two come back to take 3rd and 4th at 160 pounds. But let's move up to 170 pounds, where again we look at depth. Maybe not the biggest depth here, but still a couple big names, and that's Dylan Reinhardt from Gettysburg. Returning state medals. He was 7th in the state last year. Has made it to the state tournament all 3 seasons. He's going to NC State next year to join the Wolfpack. He is your top seed at 42-2 on the year. I like the way he's been competing. In fact, he beat Tommy Dressler from Spring Grove in the sectional finals last week. Dressler was a guy who, as a junior, was a state qualifier last year. I'm excited for this weight just because I don't really know what to expect on that bottom half. You look at a guy like Bay Blashak from Northern York. He is 28-9 on the year, but he won Section 3. And then you have undefeated from J.P. McCaskey, Andrew Vogelbacher, who is 31-0 on the season. J.P. McCaskey, maybe not the strongest schedule, but you're 31-0. I'm looking forward to watching you wrestle.
Well, yeah, it's that classic. What would you rather have? A big record, big intimidating record, go undefeated, or do you want to be battle tested? Maybe take some other losses, and your record's not as good. I mean, I'll take battle tested any day of the week. I have some question marks about the bottom half. Thomas Dressler, 11th in the state. Look, Reinhardt's already beat the best guy in this bracket. In my opinion, beat him last week. I think Reinhardt is the clear runaway favorite. I think we could see Reinhardt Dressler again. No doubt Dressler wants another shot at him. And I just don't see anybody in this bottom half beating Dressler at this point. And, Vogelbacher, it's a nice story. And like you, I want to see how he performs under the district bright lights. Yeah,
again, not taking anything away from J.P. McCaskey and what they're doing with their program, because their numbers are pretty high, and they have a tournament they go to out of state. They wrestle competition. That's you don't win 31 matches without having a few guys that are going to push you. I'm just saying in terms of like Dressler. Dressler has had a couple probably bigger matches, and Reinhardt, like you mentioned, he's the clear-cut favorite in my opinion as well. I think he's the guy everyone's chasing. So just interesting to see kind of who comes back. I always love the Concy semifinal round, that blood round of who goes to Hershey. Those are the best matches, and you just never know what to expect because a guy who's supposed to win or has won the match before ends up losing. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff, and you're like, man, that guy was a state qualifier. It's like, yeah, he got hot at the right time, So I'm excited for 170. I'm even more excited for 182 because this one is a crazy bracket. A lot of no superstars here. There's certainly no one here that is a superstar by any imagination. There's a couple guys who I think could possibly battle for a state medal, but the state's pretty deep at 182. Again, I'm looking at the depth here, and there's a lot of depth here. We'll start with Nick Baker from Penn Manor. Nick Baker is a guy who last year was a state qualifier. He's a senior. He is 33-1 on the season. In the Section 2 finals, the Section 2 finals, he was able to come out with a win over Timmy Smith from Central Dauphin, who himself was, has been pretty highly touted throughout his young career. He's only a junior. He's a big-time football player as well. Had probably a late start to the season because of that state tournament finals appearance by the Rams in the quad or whatever 6A is it now in football?
6A, yes.
Okay, they have like 9 classes now, I guess. You look at Timmy Smith and his up and down year. He's going to have his hands full down on the bottom half because, if I'm Baker, I'm looking at, okay, I got a good run here, got a good spot in the bracket, but you have Dylan Forbes from New Oxford, you got Blake Feeney from Dallastown, you also have Ben Snyder from Lower Dauphin, and Ben Snyder has a win over Timmy Smith this year, so I'm looking at him as a possible guy to bust up the bracket. I would not sleep on Bruce Vaughn from Wilson Westlawn. He's 15-1 on the year. He's a guy who had a very short season due to an injury. Last year, he was a regional qualifier. I think he's a guy who, obviously, we don't have a lot of matches with him this year to see how he is going to fare, but he just adds another layer to the depth here at 182 pounds.
I agree. I'm high on Timmy Smith because of his athleticism, and I think coming in for football, he adjusted real well. I've seen him multiple times this year, but I agree with you. I like obviously Baker. He got through the match last week, and I'm a Bruce Vaughn guy. I think Bruce Vaughn could end up in the finals here. I think he can beat Gettysburg's Max Gordley down there. So I'm going to go with the 15-1 record. I like a guy coming off injury and then performing. 16 matches, wins 15 of them. I'm going to go with him there. But how about this bracket? There's 7 guys that are ranked in the state according to PA Power from the top 25 in this bracket. 4 up top, 3 on the bottom. So this, like you said, not a lot of pop for star power, but I think there's depth here, and that makes for a good bracket.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very well balanced bracket. I think you're going to see a lot of competitive matches. I look at some of the first round matches. You got Eddie Wells from Northern York versus William Small from Donegal. William Small from Donegal has had a very good year. He's been right there with some of the best. In fact, he has a win over Nick Baker. Nick Baker's only loss on the year is to William Small from Donegal, so he's down there as well. That sets up a nice quarterfinals with him and Bruce Vaughn from Wilson should they both win. And Gorley from Gettysburg. We saw Gettysburg at the team state tournament. They've battled. I think he gives Timmy Smith fits should they both win. So, again, a lot of good, well-balanced matches here. 182. Not a lot of star power, but a lot of depth here. I'm excited to see who survives this because there's going to be some really good wrestlers with very good records that are not making it to Hershey. So that's always exciting.
It is. And the other thing, I'm not a big upper weight guy. Once you get past 160, 170, I have a tendency to tune out unless you have star power. Not this week. I think 182 is a weight that I'm gonna watch closely. I want to see who comes out of here. I agree the Timmy Smith Gorley match is going to be very entertaining. You got 17 and 19 in the state as of now, and like we both talked about Bruce Vaughn, and then up top. I don't think it's a slam dunk for Baker. I think there's a lot of landmines there. So I think you're going to have good matches each round, and that's what makes for a good bracket.
Let's go up to 195 pounds, where definitely the leader here is Jake Lucas, and that's from Cumberland Valley. Lucas is a guy who it's crazy to think he's only a junior and he hasn't placed at the state tournament yet. I've been hearing his name and watching him wrestle for so long. I just forgot that he has not placed at the state tournament and that he's only a junior. But he's 35-1 on the year. In fact, you saw his only loss, and that was to Cole Whiteman from Bell Vernon, who actually is moving up to 220 pounds for the postseason. I like Jake Lucas, and I like the way he wrestles. I got to see him at the Surge, where he wrestled Nick Feldman in the finals. But I'm looking at 95 and saying, okay, well, who are going to be the top guys here? Because you look at some of the big names. You also have Jackson Talbot from Central Dauphin, a guy who last year was a state qualifier, did not have a great performance at the state tournament, but he's a qualifier nonetheless. And then you have Josh Harkless from Wilson West Lawn, who is last year was a regional qualifier. This year is 32-3, won the Section 1 tournament here. He's on the bottom half. I think these are the three big names that we're going to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, but I think it's Jake Lucas early, often, and all the time. Here's something to consider. In the PA Power rankings at 195, the top 9 spots, 8 of them are District 7 guys. That is amazing.
Well, it's amazing, but it also caused a lot of so 2 of those guys fled 195. Whiteman, as I mentioned, he's up now at 220, and so is Cole Whitmer from Trinity, who was a state qualifier last year. He's now up at 220, and Nick Marcinelli from North Allegheny, who has a win over Jackson Talbot at the Beast of the East, he's now down to 182. So I think a lot of these guys probably saw, man, you look at the top 10, and we've got 8 or 7 of the top 10 guys ranked in the state.
Right.
Because you have Luke Stout and Luke Montgomery 1 and 2, Braden Roskowski. These guys are just, they're heavy hitters. They're really good wrestlers. People were thinking, we got to get away from here. So we did see 3 of the top of those guys flee 195. But yeah, a lot of depth here from the WPIL. So it definitely pushes down some of those District 3 guys, such as Talbot and Harkless. But nonetheless, I think those are the 3 guys that I'm keeping an eye on. I think Lucas, as you said, it's his to lose.
Yeah, because he's the one guy who's in the top 10 who's broke up that District 7 dominance. So I have no reason to think that he is going to have a slip up or anything. I watched him last week. It was business as usual. I like Jackson Talbot, don't get me wrong. And obviously Josh Harkness. They are the 3 big guns in this bracket. They're the 3 ranked guys in this bracket. And I think they're going to go 1, 2, 3 with Jake Lucas taking the title and pretty easily.
This would be Jake Lucas's first title. He lost last year in the finals to Nehemiah Diggs from Harrisburg. So this would be the first time that Lucas would find himself on top of the District 3 South Central Regional podium. So that's interesting. Let's go up to 220 pounds, where we had talked about basic certainties through the first 12 weight classes, but now the wheels have come off, because 220 pounds is an interesting weight, because at the top at the top of the rankings, not the top of the bracket, you have Marquise Holton from Central Dauphin, who is a state qualifier. Last year he was a state qualifier, is number 5 in the state. But after that, it gets a little dicey, because you have a couple other guys that are going to push Marquise and try to qualify for the state tournament, like TJ Moore from Cedar Crest, who also last year was a state qualifier out of District 3. He is the Section 1 champion, 32-2. He's on the bottom half, like Marquise Holton, but on the top half, a little bit more open. You got Jacob Sharp from York Tech, a guy who I don't have a whole lot of information on, other than the fact that he's 23-0, and he's from a school that doesn't have a ton of wrestling. He's at the top here, undefeated from the Section 4. He came out with a win over Lucas Reed from Central York. And then you have Dustin Swanson from Garden Spot, who's a junior. In fact, Swanson made a name for himself when he made it to the finals of Fargo, and has done well for himself. He lost to Colby Franklin, who's now at Wyoming Seminary. Dustin Swanson's a guy who I think is going to push anyone on the top half. You have also Wyatt Hall from Chambersburg. You had mentioned Carlisle. How about Chambersburg? Chambersburg, I feel like they have a guy at every weight too.
Yeah, I think Carlisle and Chambersburg, you can see their programs just getting better and better and better, and it comes down to coaching. I think down at Chambersburg, Coach Menser, hey, he's been a tactician for a long time. He's known for that. And I think at Carlisle, they got a good crop of guys, and I think they have a good feeder program, and Coach Wilson does a good job there. And a lot of guys behind the scenes, a lot of assistants. So I think there's
Chris Koczynski from Middletown, he's one that's there as well. So I agree with you. I think the building blocks are in place, and you're seeing it pay dividends. I'm looking at some of the quarterfinals that we could see Dustin Swanson and Wyatt Hall. That's a number 11 versus number 12 in the state. That could be a big time match. And Marquise Holton, I think, has a good path to the semifinals against TJ Moore, but I think TJ Moore is going to push him. So I again, the question is Jacob Sharp. What's he about, and what can he bring to the table? Because 23-0 from York Tech, I'm not totally sold on that. The section wasn't the deepest section. No, it wasn't a bad section, but it wasn't the strongest. So what's he going to be about? I think the real story here is who's going to come out of the top.
I agree with you. By the way, Cedar Crest, my alma mater. There you go. Finally have somebody doing well in wrestling. That doesn't happen.
They've had some good wrestling over the years.
Stop it.
Not quite like my alma mater, but
no, definitely not. But no, and I agree with you. I think this bracket all hinges on Jacob Sharp. Who is he? How's he do? What's going on as far as the section? I don't think was strong. I don't know if he makes it to the finals here.
I just don't think we know. I don't think we have enough on him to say. I don't know if he makes it to the top four. I mean, it's very uncertain.
I agree, and that's going to be the story to watch at 220. At least I have a reason to watch 220. Normally I start to fade out.
You're normally faded out after 160. Let's be honest. 160, you start checking out.
No, not all the time. They just do less and less. I mean,
I know you don't get excited about.
Hey, look, you don't have Thomas Haynes. Remember Thomas Haynes
or Michael Wolfgram,
Rizzo. Remember him when he was up there?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, those guys were great, but
I get it. Well, then you're not going to be excited about the next weight class we're going to talk about, and that's 285 pounds. And at the top, you have Robbie Unruh from Exeter. He is a guy who is 39-2 in the season. Has a good year. In fact, he won the Buckskin Classic at Conestoga Valley. Has been pretty consistent throughout the year. He has a win over Nathan Mosey from Central Dauphin, who was in and out of the lineup. Another football guy, and he won Section 2. But outside of that, man, I'm not really sure what to expect because there's not a whole lot of consistency in terms of guys that are really sharp. Sean Hess won Section 3. I think you could have threw a bunch of dices up in the air and let him land, and that could have determined who won Section 3 because that was all over the place. Not really, again, not a lot of consistency. Donovan Bear from Northern New York, he's 11-2. Charles Martin, a guy that has done well. Hayden Banner from Warwick. I just really don't know what to expect here. I think Robbie Unruh and possibly Mosey are the guys, but then you have another. So kind of like we talked about with York Tech, you have Nasir Spellman from York Suburban, who I did do some research on him. He's a football guy. He's a pretty good football player. He hasn't wrestled before, but he's 18-3 on the year, and he won Section 4. So he clearly, I mean, when you get up to this weight, you don't really have to have the best technique. So anything's possible.
I agree, but I don't know how Unruh does not win this bracket. Number one, number two, he's beaten arguably the best guy in the bracket already last week in Adam Case. Yeah. So I just don't see anything changing. I think the interesting one is Nathaniel Mosley. I don't know how he performs, in this bracket. If I'm not mistaken, is he coming off an injury? I believe.
I think so. He was definitely out of the lineup, so I'm not sure if what it was, but yeah, he's off an injury. So
I mean, look, you don't know what you're getting there, and the thing with heavyweight is always, do you get caught? I mean, it's like you said, you don't have the best technique all the time, but you get caught. You can get caught in a slam. You can get caught when you go belly to belly with a guy. Anything could happen. So it's kind of staying out of harm's way. If you're a good wrestler like Unruh, you stay out of the way. You don't get caught in anything. And you just take care of business. So I think he'll do that. and I'm probably already writing at this weight.
You're probably either asleep or writing at this time, and
not sleeping. Not
sleeping.
Sleeping.
Okay. Well, you had mentioned Adam Case from Conrad Weiser, and he's a guy who he has 4 losses. 3 of those are all to Unruh. The other one is to the number 1 ranked guy in the nation, Hunter Katka. So, of those losses, he has 3 to the same guy and 1 to the number 1 in the nation. So I think he's a guy who's probably going to push some folks here. He has a win over Charles Martin. He has 2 wins over Brock Gingrich from Cocalico. I think we could see maybe him make a run for it. In fact, last year he had a good year, finishing 30-6 on the season and was a regional qualifier. So I think he has the experience, and I think he's been tested, and I think he's has shown that he's going to be a good wrestler. So. Yeah, I'm excited to see if we can see another rematch there of a 4th time with him and Unruh at 285.
I think we'll know early on because he's going to probably face Mosey in the quarters. I think if he gets past that, I think he's going to go to the finals, and I think we do get that repeat match.
Okay, Jeremy, so let's switch gears to AA, and the AA tournament, they have their sections, district, regionals. So I'm still not sure why District 3 has sections, but they do. But this week they are doing their district tournament, not at the same location. Last year we endured the old barn, the Hershey Arena, and where they had both AA and AAA. This year they're splitting it up. AAA is at Spring Grove. AA is at CD East. So CD East will be host to the District 3 AA championships. And we're going to quickly go through that. There's not a ton to talk about, but we will mention a few things. And let's start at 106. And Devin Jackson from West Perry, really good story there. Guy who probably gets more notoriety just to the fact of his disability with not having any legs below his knees. So I think he's a guy who has had a good year so far. He's the highest ranked District 3 guy in the state. In fact, he's the only District 3 guy that we've seen. But he had a good win over Mason McClendon from Susquehanna in the finals of the Section 1 tournament. So he may be able to repeat this performance again in the District 3 tournament.
I like this kid a lot. I saw him down at the Trojan Wars, and I thought he really got jobbed in a match. Guy was stalling, doing nothing, and I just thought I thought Devin did a good job. I was impressed by him, and that takes a lot. And I think he's the favorite here. I think he's going to get it done and go to. You don't see many West Perry kids always advance to states, but I think you're going to see him not only get out of districts. I think he's going to advance through states. As far as this tournament being separate from AAA, I hate it. I'm just trying to figure out if I hate that more than I hate going to the old barn. So
that's a tough draw there.
It is a tough draw. I've written stories about Hershey, and I love the Giant Center. I don't love the old barn. It's just not fit for wrestling with the cleanliness. But I don't like these tournaments being separate, meaning AAA and AA, because I think the AA kids get the short end of the stick as far as coverage and notoriety. And not that I'm about everything being equal, but I think when you get to districts, it's nice when it's all together. But back to 106, I think Devin is definitely the clear-cut favorite here. I like him. I think if you get a chance to see him wrestler, not only is he an inspiration, I think he's just a good wrestler, hard-nosed wrestler. So I choose to look at him that way.
Not a lot of depth at 106, but at 113 there is. And Connor Brown is a guy who is kind of leading that charge. He comes in ranked number 7th in the state qualifier last year. He's a junior from Littlestown, Section 1 champion. But Section 1 was deep. You had Gannon Smith from Newport as well. He took 3rd. Smith was a state qualifier last year. I like the way that he's been wrestling this year, but clearly he's going to be in a tough part of the bracket. Matt Inman from Anvil Cleona, also a guy who is a two-time state qualifier. So he's a senior, has made it to the state tournament twice already, and he comes in as the Section 2 runner-up. Parker Davidson from Hamburg beat him in the finals, which set him up nicely. He's probably going to see Corey Smith from Bermuda Springs. So I like the depth here at 113. You got a lot of guys that are capable of making some noise.
I think right here we got to watch Parker Davidson. Those Hamburg kids are pretty good. They showed that, throughout the season. And look, it goes back to I like guys when they have tough rooms. That's a tough room. So he showed his worth last week, and I think he's going to have a good district tournament.
Let's go up to 120 pounds, where the story is Nate Smith from Bishop McDevitt, three-time state medalist. He was 5th as a freshman, 7th as a sophomore, and third-place finisher as a junior. He is the guy to watch here, 27-1 on the year. Not a whole lot after him. Dominic Caldwell from Susquehanna is another guy who has made it into the state rankings. But I don't know. This is all Nate Smith all the time, as you would say. So Dominic Caldwell can probably be the one to make it to the finals. But I wouldn't look past Christian Doy either from Camp Hill. He's a guy who has also found his way into the rankings throughout this season. He was a state qualifier last year. So, but it's all Nate Smith here.
Look, you said it, and I've already moved up to 126 because Nate Smith is going to waltz through this bracket and win a district title.
Okay, well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy Elliott made a bold claim that Nate Smith's going to win District 3. Watch out.
Hey, look, I moved on.
I'm going to make another bold claim here and say that Levi Haynes is going to win 126. That's actually not that – it's actually kind of bold because – There is some competition here. Levi Haynes, 22-2 on the season. He was a state runner-up last year, lost to Sheldon Seymour from Troy in the finals. But you also have Noah Frack, a guy who is a senior from Brandywine Heights. He was 7th in the state last year. I'm sorry, he's a junior. Noah Frack is. He was 7th in the state last year, 28-1 on the season so far. He's on the bottom half, so I think this is going to be a Haynes and Frack collision course.
Absolutely, and I'm anxious to see that match. Levi Haynes has been impressive since he's been in the mix here. He's a sophomore. It's a shame that these guys are both in a bracket with Ryan Crookham.
Yeah, and Jackson Arrington from Forest Hills, a state champ.
Yeah, no, you're big on him and should be. So again, they're going to be probably battling for not only the district title, but I think these guys are going to both medal at states, Haynes and Frack, and we're going to see a preview, I think, of how well they're going to do at states. And they obviously have to get through regionals, but I think they'll do that. But I think you're going to see a pretty good final between these two.
Go up to 132, and much like maybe 113, we see a lot of good depth here. Maybe not the superstars, but you have a guy, Adam Jacob, who was a state medalist last year, finished 6th in the state. He's up a few weight classes to 132, a guy who I feel like has been around for quite a while. He was a qualifier as a sophomore in AAA before going down to AA, and he was 6th, as I mentioned, in the state last year in AA. I think he's the guy to beat here, but you have some landmines here. The first one I like is Kyle Vernon on that top half. Kyle Vernon had a win over Luke Fagley, a guy who had beat him earlier in the year. And you had mentioned the room. Kyle Vernon's battling with the Gimbers every day. They're making each other better. He is 28-10 on the year, but those are 10 probably more tough losses than most guys have. The guy who beat him in the section finals is Brandon Brennigan from Northern Lebanon, a senior, who has been a state qualifier and has 139 wins in his career. So a guy who knows how to get his hand raised 139 times, he's a guy I'm going to probably keep an eye on. Again, has depth here.
Look at that top bracket with Jacob, Fagley, and Vernon sitting up there. And I think any one of those guys can get the win. I don't think...
And Aiden Dillon's not bad either. So
I think that top half is... I'm wondering if this is the best half of a bracket in AA. They have depth. yeah, you have some high state ranked guys. I mean, Adam Jacob 5. I mean, Fegley 10.
I'm gonna push back and say 38 probably is, just because of they have 3 top 10 ranked guys.
Sure.
But 32 is very deep, and while we're on the subject of 138, Patrick DeMarc, this guy's this is a crazy story, right? Because he was a state qualifier for Cumberland Valley in AAA as a freshman, goes to Trinity, was a state runner-up in as a sophomore. Last year, never really came to fruition. Nothing ever worked out for him. He was injured, never even competed in the regional tournament. And now this year, he's 14-1 on the season, so hasn't been in the lineup a whole heck of a lot. He won the Section 1 tournament, though, and beat Blake Showers from Biglerville, who's a returning state medalist, 2-time state medalist. Showers was 7th as a sophomore, 8th as a junior. So you also have Dalton Gimber here, who was 8th last year and was a qualifier as a freshman. So you have Gimber, who's 4th in the state, DeMarc, who's 5th in the state, and Showers, who's 6th in the state, all in this bracket. This is, I mean, those 3 are 3 of the best in the state.
I agree, and the Gimbers. You and I have talked off air about the Gimbers. They're good. They're real good, and they're taking they get the benefit of being in a good room. And the Showers Gimber match is going to be your semifinal. I think DeMarc's going to be waiting for the winner of that in the finals. I just don't know what to expect from DeMarc because we don't have a big sample size. He showed 2 years ago that how good he can be. And, last year, just the injuries, things not going well. What are we going to see this year? So it's going to be interesting to see how this weight plays out.
And you also have state-ranked Coben Carper from Boiling Springs, who's 32-10 on the year. He comes in ranked number 18th in the state, so he's on the top half, but I agree. I think DeMarc is probably going to win that, but a lot of depth here from District 3.
Yeah, and in AA, you don't always see that. So I agree, 138 is probably a better overall weight. I still like for one half of the bracket, I like that top 132.
Okay.
Just from a one side of the bracket perspective.
I got you.
But yeah, at 132 and 138, definitely you don't want to go for French fries during those 2 weights.
Well, I don't even know if they have French fries at Spring Grove, but I guess maybe we'll find out this weekend.
At CD East, they're at CD East though.
Oh yeah, I forgot CD East.
I'm sure they'll have French fries. Come on,
that's true.
CD East used to put out some of the best spreads for tennis, for crying out loud. I think they're going to do the same for wrestling.
I would hope so. Let's go up to 145 pounds, where Dorian Gonzalez from Newport is on the top half of the bracket there. He's a 2-time state qualifier. He's on the season. He is 32-4. He's a guy who, as I mentioned, has made it to the state tournament twice before. But there's some other guys here that I'm keeping an eye on. Michael Trainer from Octorara, he's there as well. He is a regional qualifier last year. He's 32-8 on the season. Michael Dugan from Boiling Springs. He is the 3rd Dugan, brother of Francis and Patrick Dugan. He's at Boiling Springs. He is 29-9 on the season. He could have a nice match there with Michael Trainer in the quarterfinals. I like this weight class because on the bottom half it doesn't get any worse. You have Bailey Gimber from Hamburg, who was a state qualifier last year. You also have Dan Kuznetsky from Trinity, who I like, and I think he's a guy who's probably going to perform well here. He's had a good season thus far, and also Joseph Spear from Middletown. So a good amount of depth here as well. I think we're going to have some battles here, especially to finish the top 2 and top 4.
I agree. And on top of that, something to keep in mind, Boiling Springs, we talk about it all the time. Yes, Rod Wright is not there, but Byers is equally good, and he's been a part of this program for so long. He has a lot of knowledge. He's going to have these guys ready. And another Dugan.
Another Dugan. Yeah.
It's interesting how Michael Dugan's going to fare. Pretty nice record coming in, 29-9. I'm anxious for that Trainer match that I think Dugan and Trainer in the quarterfinals is going to be interesting. And before facing Gonzalez from Newport. So definitely a weight to watch.
152. And the story here is Tyler Martin from Bishop McDevitt. He had been down at 45. He's now at 52 for the postseason. He is 33-3 on the season. He was a state medalist last year after being a state qualifier as a sophomore, 6th in the state last year. He comes in ranked at number 4, but you also have a returning state medalist who was also 6th in the state, and that's Trenton Harder for Bermudian Springs. And then you have Nick Winters from Northern Lebanon, who was a state qualifier last year. These are 3 highly ranked guys, all coming in the top 10. So I like the depth here, much like 32 and 38. And then you also have Aiden Kaufman from Hamburg and Bryce Enders from Halifax. So I like the depth here, but I think this is an all Tyler Martin and Trent Harder match. I think that's going to be the finals to watch here.
Yeah, I mean, much like when Nate Smith is running mate at Bishop McDevitt, I think Tyler Martin's going to get this done. I saw him down at Trojan Wars, looked really good. I just don't see how Tyler Martin loses this weight.
You go up to 160 pounds, and you had mentioned Devin Jackson from West Perry, but his teammate Tyler Wonders, a junior, he is actually looking for his first trip to the regional tournament. He was 8th in the district last year. He is actually has a pretty decent year, 26-2 on the season at a very not so strong 160, and I'm interested to see if he can outlast the rest of the field. I'm also looking at a guy like Eli Crum from Bullen Springs, who's 30-9 on the season. He beat him in the finals, but that was a match that I think could possibly go the other way. You look at some of the other guys here. Nathan Rode from Newport, he's going to be in the top half. Had probably a not a great tournament, but he was injured. He injury defaulted out. And we could see a Wonders and Road match right in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I agree. And what about on the bottom side, too? Max DeLay from Camp Hills, 26-3. Be interesting to see how he fares coming out of Section 2. He was the winner there. And I think he's on a collision course with Eli Crum. And it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I mean, pretty, like I said, pretty good record. We'll see if he can back that up at districts.
You move up to 170 pounds, and not a ton of depth here, but you do have guys like Sean Getty from Camp Hill, who last year was a regional qualifier. You also have Branton Mason from Hamburg, another Hamburg guy who's 30-5 in the year, probably one of the more consistent guys at the weight class. Those are the guys who really stand out and come in ranked in the state, but Mason Huggins from Newport is there as well, 31-5 on the season. I don't know what's going to happen here at 170. I really think we're probably going to see a Getty and Mason match in the finals, but I don't know. I'm not really hard on that.
No, I think that's what you're going to get. I mean, obviously they met last week and Getty got the win. I think Getty's just a little bit better as well. And I think they're on a collision course. I mean, this is much like some of the other weights we've talked about today where, you saw it at sectionals. You're going to see it this week, and God knows you might see it at regionals. Who knows? But, I think we're pretty much on a collision course with Getty and Mason.
You look at 182 pounds, and this is one of the first weight classes where we don't have anyone from District 3 ranked in the top 25 in the state. And that's not to say that none of these guys are capable or able to find themselves in the rankings, but they just don't have maybe the results that are going to get you into the state rankings. Brad Morrison from West Perry is 32-4 on the season. He was a Section 1 champion. Riley Robel from Bishop McDevitt, he's a guy who we got to see at the Surge as well. He's a really good wrestler. I think he's maybe, I'm not going to say he's undersized or he's not favored at this weight. I just think he's got a lot to prove here. He's 24-7 on the year, down at 182. He had spent time up at 195. So I'm curious to see how this one shakes out, especially the fact that it's so wide open.
Yeah, I agree. And for Robel, keep in mind who his coach is. It's Mike Nauman. Mike Nauman's had his share of success in the district tournament. Good tactician. He's going to get people in the room to spar with this guy. So, if not Nallman himself. So,
right, yeah.
So I think that helps Rebel. I think having a coach like that can only benefit you. I think he has a shot at winning this weight. Wes Perry, again, another Wes Perry kid. I think Wes Perry's on the uptick, and we're seeing that just by the records and some of the kids they have in this tournament. But I think Rebel I'm going to take Rebel to win this weight.
Okay, another bold prediction here from Jeremy Elliott. Picking a section champ who's seeded second to win a championship.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
you're crazy, man. I'm just messing with you.
That's
but
all right.
You make it sound like I'm going to go out on a limb here.
Nope.
Let's go up to 195. Ethan Rode from Newport is at the top on the top half. He's 33-3 on the season, state qualifier. Another guy I'm looking forward to seeing is Zach Ruffner from Tulpehocken. He's a guy who's not been in the lineup a whole heck of a lot this year. He's 12-6, but he was actually a really big name coming into his career as a freshman. Never really panned out to what he's wanted to be. Nick James, state qualifier. He was a state qualifier last year, Nick James was, but he's 17-12 on the year, so not a great year for him. We could see him go against Rode in the quarterfinals. And then Paul Paris from Camp Hill is also in the weight class. He's 31-5. So, but I think Rhodes the guy here that people are chasing.
Yeah, I think this is a slam dunk as well. I just don't see anybody beating him. Ruffner's interesting, but look, you mentioned that it just hasn't panned out. It makes me skittish to think he's going to pan out at districts. I think he can make it to regionals. But I just don't think he has anything for Rode here in the top half. And then in the bottom half, I just don't think anybody's on Rode's level. So I think it's a slam dunk.
You go up to 220, and the big name here is Savari Shelton from Bermudian Springs. He's 33-2 on the season, comes in ranked number 7th in the state, and he's a guy who last year was 10-3, had his season cut short. So in his career, he's 43-5, so a pretty decent career record. He is a guy who I think could make some noise in the regional and possibly state tournaments. I outside of that, though, I mean, it's kind of up in the air because I'm not really sure what to expect from some of the guys on the bottom half, like Devin Clare from Bishop McDevitt. There's not a lot of guys here that jump off the page at me. So I think this is Shelton's. You talk about slam dunk. I think this is probably a slam dunk for him.
I think so as well. Again, you do have to watch, though, getting caught. I mean, let's face it. You're starting to get to the heavyweight level, and somebody can body you and just flip you over and you're done. And these are the weights where you see slams too, and then DQs. Just something to watch. We've seen it in the past with some big guys. If Savari can just stay away from any trouble, not get bodied up with somebody inside, I think he's going to cruise to the title.
Then you move up to heavyweight, your favorite weight class, and you got Jake Moyer from Fairfield, 23-1. He comes in. He actually earned a spot in the rankings, the updated rankings, and he's a guy who I wouldn't say untested, but Fairfield, we haven't seen him wrestle a lot of fellow state-ranked wrestlers. In fact, any. So, again, not really sure what to expect. And then you have Sawyer Morgan from Bishop McDevitt, 25-9. Again, Bishop McDevitt, you've got Michael Nauman there. You've got guys that are going to push him. Not sure what to expect here at heavyweight. I think you should leave Spring Grove early and go to Varsity East to check out the heavyweights, Jeremy.
No.
No. Okay. I thought for sure you'd jump all over that.
That's a big negative on that.
It's going to be a no for me, dog.
Yeah, it's
as Randy Jackson would say, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I'm not. Yeah,
that's fine. Well, I don't know who's going to come out on this. It'll be. We'll see. We shall see what happens for the entire tournament. To be honest, I think we have a lot of good depth here in District 3 AA. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the results of this. I'm looking forward to getting back to covering wrestling over a weekend. I do have to do a little bit of racing on Saturday. which will take me out of pocket for a couple hours. But I can't wait to get back at it at Spring Grove. I'll be there with you, and we'll cover some more good wrestling.
Well, we can't wait to have you. And as always, for all your wrestling needs, visit papowerwrestling.com. Go find us on Rockfin. If you go on Rockfin, you search for PA Power Wrestling, you'll find our channel. We have all kinds of goodies there. We got match videos, we got articles, we got interviews. If you click on Stacks, you'll find the rankings. So if you're on the main page of the Rockfin PA Power Wrestling channel, you'll see Stacks. You click on that, and that's all the premium content, including regional, state, and recruiting rankings. So stay tuned to PA Power Wrestling. Jeremy and I will be at Spring Grove providing you coverage. So looking forward to that. Jeremy, as always, we appreciate you.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be back on the show and to be covering wrestling again. Thank you.
For my broadcast partner, Jeremy Elliott, I'm Jeff Upson, and stay tuned. We'll see you next time.